Alright guys, so I'm going to show you how to do the dual angles layout. We're using a symmetrical ball, Visionary Ogre solid, so there is no mass bias. We'll talk about that in a minute. First step, as I said, we're going to line up the prosect and draw a line from the pin through the CG. Make it a nice long line. Nice long line from the pin through the CG. So we're doing this righty. We're going to do .55 by 4 by 45 with a positive access point of 4 horizontal, 1/8 up. So we have our center line. I'm holding the prosect this way. We got inches across here. It's a protractor, so we got degrees across the back. And this is called the rib of the prosect. So I'm just going to line up 0 on the pin and have the rib on the center line. And I'm going to mark just a little spot by 55 degrees. Alright, and now I'm going to draw my line and connect it. Alright, the way I can check it is just by taking the prosect, putting it at 0, along the center line, and you can see it's right at 55 degrees. So at this point, your center line is really obsolete. We're not going to. Some people like to erase it. I don't. It helps me draw parallel lines later in the layout. But for all intents and purposes, this line is no longer important. Second, our distance, 4 inches. I'm going to take the prosect, put it on the pin, measure 4 inches down, and mark the spot. Alright, and mark the spot, 4 inches, 4 inches. Alright, and now we're going to draw our val angle, the last angle, which is 45 degrees. Alright, so this is the hardest part. This is the part where people seem to get confused. Remember, for our first angle, we approach the pin like this. Okay, now we're going to go to our 4-inch mark, take our prosect and flip it and put 0 at the 4-inch mark. Line the rib up along the line and mark our second angle at 45 degrees. Alright, now we'll draw a nice long line to connect it. 45 degrees. If you get rid of all of the lines you don't need, you end up with an N. Well, if you keep the center line, it ends up looking like an N. If you have an N for righty, it's an N. For a lefty, it's a backwards N. I'm a lefty. I like backwards N's. All right. So now our PAP we said was 1/8 up and 4 over. We're going to start with the 1/8 up. When the positive axis point goes up, you actually go down. So we start with our 4-inch mark here. Take the prosect and just go down 1/8 of an inch and mark it. 1/8 of an inch and mark it. And now we have to go 4 over. So I'm just going to line up my prosect with the rib on the center line. That will ensure that I have a nice parallel line. Draw a long line through. This line is going to end up being your center line. We needed to go, we had 1/8 up and 4 over. So I just take the prosect, put it there on 0, and then mark the 4 spot, which is right here. All right, and let's just say our span is 4, just an even 4. All right, so this is we want our line, our center line, to go through this point here. So I line up my prosect. So 2 is on the center line. My thumb is going to be right here. Draw a thumb. Draw a line straight up through that line. And at 4, draw 2 fingers. All right. Obviously, your pitches are gonna change, are gonna affect it, where the fingers actually end up, and it's not gonna look exactly like this. But this is how you draw a dual angles layout. And the only difference with an asymmetrical ball is, instead of drawing the line through the CG, you draw it to the mass bias. The mass bias looks like an 8. You draw it through the mass bias. If you happen to have to go through the CG, that's fine. But if the CG were over here, you would ignore it and go straight down through to the mass bias. The end.